Chris Cuomo here. We're monitoring former President Trump in Pennsylvania. Vice President Kamala Harris will also be making a stop there on our watch. We'll give you that as well. Let's listen in.
Had situations where, and we put up videos of the vicious crimes. I don't put them up anymore. You know why? Because the fake news refuses to put them on. And I have friends call me. They love to watch the rallies. They can't get enough of them. And they're going, President, it's so terrible. You're speaking, and then you put up a video on a screen right behind you, and the fake news refuses to. All they have to do, they don't put it on television. They have the thing on every one of those stations, and, there's one that doesn't really treat us good, but people think they do. Nobody can figure that one out, I'm sure. They don't treat me good, but that's okay. But listen, they can't move the television. They can't move. All they have to do is take that camera and go like this, 1 inch over, 1 inch up, and you'd be able to see the screens, but you can't see them. So I don't really bother with it anymore. It's a terrible thing, We have to get them to straighten out, because I think without a free and fair press, it's very hard to do what we want to do. It's a very hard thing. Very hard thing to do. But they're allowing people to come in from insane asylums and mental institutions from all around the world, from Venezuela to the Congo in Africa. They're stealing our jobs, and they're stealing countless American lives. They're killing a lot of people, much more than you're reading about. The day I take office, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins.
All right. Will former Donald Trump scare enough people with his pictures of the problems in America to win? Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Here we go. Election Eve. I can promise you this. We will be with you every step of the way of this election process. I know many are giving you takes on what they think is going to happen. I have no clue. I've spoken to pollsters, ground workers for both teams, and they are definitely spinning. I don't know if they're trying to convince themselves of what they're saying or convince me, but both sides are saying something interesting, which is that they're seeing vote changes as they're going door to door in the swing states. Now, that doesn't surprise me for two reasons. There are a lot of people who are confused by all the crazy in this election and not sure what is more tolerable. There's also a tendency for these folks to say what they have to say to get rid of the person at the door, in my experience. So here's what I know and what I'm focused on. First, and I actually mean this most of all, don't worry. Anxiety or fear of the unknown is useless. Other than regret, it is the least useful disposition or emotion. It changes nothing for you. Whatever happens in the next few days, let it come, and we will handle it. Now, I believe in that because I believe in us. Even if you want to beat me over the head with January 6th, Trump, for all he said, for all he tried, for all he did, for all the people around him said and tried and did, he was gone when it came time to inaugurate the winner. Now, I happen to believe when it comes to perfidy, your first chance is your best chance to do me dirty. Now, some will say, no, he learned from that. It'll be different. I don't see it. But I get that it's scary. But I hope you understand that it's frightening by design. I've been doing this a long time, okay? I've never seen a campaign less about the positive and more about inducing panic than this one. Yeah, it's been a sliding scale as the two parties are constantly finding convenience in the extreme, and social media makes it easy to magnify minorities. And I think we're all co-opted by the few instead of the many. But really, let's be honest, this election has been little more than an extension of Halloween. It's all pretend panic and phantom phobias. Who can scare you the most about the other? Now, I have said that my analysis of this election is that the dominant dynamic has been grievance. Grocery prices, gas prices, cultural upset, the economic and cultural status quo. Now, that suggests that the incumbent could be in trouble because it's on their watch. Now, usually the incumbent has the advantage, right? Of the 45 or whatever presidents we've had, we've only had 10, including Trump, who didn't get a second term. It's rare. So a grievance dynamic could make it Trump's race to lose. So why don't I say, well, then I think he should win? Because it's him. And Donald Trump has the ability to loom larger and more scary than any price tag or perceived problem. It reminds me of the analysis in 2016. Now, I was earlier to the Trump reality than many in my business. The rallies were very impressive to me. I had forgotten what his celebrity meant everywhere else in the country than in New York. If it weren't Clinton, Trump likely would have lost in 2016, too, because of how many people had to justify voting for someone who was saying and doing what they would likely never echo in their own lives. It feels like that now as well. If Harris were facing Haley or Christie or Governor DeSantis, I think more of her people would be susceptible to peeling off. But Trump is so divisive, so objectionable. And no, it's not because the media goes after him all the time. It's his own mouth. He could lose this by losing more center-right people than Harris loses center-left people. I suspect the story of who wins is going to be a battle of attrition. Which side holds together more in this desperate dive to the bottom of who and what is worse? Personally, I know who matters, who wins matters to all of you. It doesn't matter to me as much. And you don't have to care about that. I know you're going to all beat me up on it. That's okay, too, all right? I don't form my opinions based on how you feel about them. Maybe I should, but I don't, okay? Personally, it's not tomorrow or even the next day that has my attention. It's what follows that. It seems fairly likely I'm not going to tell you who won tomorrow night. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia have all signaled that their rules on vetting ballots are going to slow things down. Counting will take them time. I'm okay with that. They've suggested it could take it to Wednesday, even late Wednesday, especially if it's close, specifically in Georgia. So we got to wait. But time is the enemy as well. Beware fakery. Social media is a cesspool of unsubstantiated estimates and intrigue. Personally, I will not report or promote any allegations of election problems that do not come with direct witnesses or verifiable proof of the same, at least not until adjudicated by the courts. If you can't give me the person who saw it or did it or video that we can authenticate, I'm going to wait until the courts because there's just way too much BS. Now, hopefully, this election is decisive in a way that is beyond dispute. But with Trump, you never know. And even then, I'm still not as concerned about the who as the how. My biggest concern is what happens after we know who it is and how staunch, how toxic the refusal to work with whomever wins will be. Why? It's over. We're supposed to come together. That's not what they're selling. They're selling that the other side is not different, is not wrong, it's evil. And that makes it very easy for them to adopt opposition as somehow a virtuous position. So that's where my head is, and that's why I wanted our first guest tonight, Senator Joe Manchin, West Virginia. He has become a really interesting example of what's going on in the Democratic Party and the desperation to get back to doing the work of the people. Look, we're seeing that these sides are setting it up. Hakeem Jeffries said, if Trump wins, we'll certify. Speaker Johnson said, if Harris wins, he'll certify if it's a free and fair election. Take a listen.
A free and fair and legal election will be certified, and that is our hope and prayer across the board. Of course I'm going to follow the Constitution. I'm going to follow the law. That's my job. It's my duty. I took an oath to do that, and I will fulfill my oath.
Regardless of who wins, you'll certify the results.
Regardless, of course, yes, if the election is free and fair and legal, and we pray and hope that it is, there's a lot of work being done to make sure that's true.
I'm telling you, it's a hedge position. He just took a hedge position. All right? Why? Because, of course, if it's not free and fair, of course you have a problem. See, the hedge position is, what does that mean, free and fair? I have a concern that what that means to that man is Trump won. And if he didn't win, then they have a problem. And then we have a problem. Okay? So I want to bring in Senator Joe Manchin right now, and I want to talk about where his head is. Not so much on what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day, but what the reality will be for the rest of his term in Congress. Is anything going to get done, or is this the new normal? Beware the other. Senator Joe Manchin, great to see you. Thank you for joining me on an historic eve.
Hey, Chris, great to be with you. So great to be with you, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing okay because I don't do worry. I don't do anxiety. Fear is a choice. The danger is real. How concerned are you that whoever loses, especially if it's Trump, will not accept and cause chaos?
Well, I'm not concerned. I'm more concerned about, are we as Americans going to accept who our new leader will be, either he or she? Can you accept that? And if you can accept that as an American, then you want them to succeed. If you want them to succeed, you'll do all you can to make sure that you can contribute in any way possible. I've been involved in all these pieces of legislation. I've written a lot of it, and there's a lot of good things that we've been able to do. The country's doing better than what it's been said, and they want you to think we're in chaos. Gas prices in West Virginia below $3 a gallon. All prices are coming down. We're producing more energy in the United States of America, Chris, than ever in the history of our country. So we're doing, and we're investing more in cleaner technologies than ever before. So we're leading the whole world. With that being said, there's some things that we can all improve on and do better. So whoever gets that job, I'm willing to step up and help any way possible if asked to do so. But you have to be able to speak truth to power. You know, you just can't continue to try to make this a divided state, you know, instead of the United States of America, the divided states. Think about this, Chris. Think about one thing. How many hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on so few states thinking that they're just trying to grab so few voters, which are independents? I became an independent because I didn't like where the Democratic Party had gone. I don't like where the Republican Party has gone. I like the grand old party to be grand again. I want the Democratic Party to be responsible and compassionate. They don't have to be extremes left and extreme right. That's not how we lived our life. So they're spending all that money. And when you think about it, there's more as 51% of Americans like myself with no party affiliation. You know, you become politically homeless. We've got to change that system so we don't find ourselves back here again in 4 years.
What is the chance that you get the parties to open up the primaries? Because other than a constitutional convention, which is in the Constitution, if you get two-thirds of the state legislatures asking for it, you can have a constitutional convention, but the parties aren't in the Constitution. They're not creatures of law, they're tradition.
Right.
If you could get them to open their primaries, then you wouldn't have such extreme candidates. But why would they do that? That's the rules of their club. What's the solution?
Well, when you think about our founding fathers, think about George Washington. You know, he could have been King George. And he says, no, this is going to be different than anywhere in the world has ever tried. We're going to govern ourselves. We're going to have a representative form of a democracy. We're going to choose how we govern. And he was concerned about the political parties way back in 1789, very much concerned. Jefferson and Hamilton didn't have a good relationship. And he stayed an extra 4 years, it's been said, an extra 4 years. He's only going to run one term to show you truly how a representative form of government should work. He stayed an extra 4 years. And then when he left in his parting his parting shots, and if you will, in his parting papers, he said, "Beware of the political parties, for they will usurp the power from the people." That's exactly what both parties have done. And you're right. We need open primaries. We need basically, if my good friend Lisa Murkowski would not have won in Alaska if it wasn't for ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting. Now you have states outlawing ranked choice voting. They don't even have ranked choice voting. They're allowing it. They're outlawing it as a possibility. Do you think no matter who wins, you'll find people who want to work with you on legislation, or is the opposition too steep now? No, it's not too steep. But you're fighting an uphill mountain of cash. These are duopolies. These are two businesses. It's not basically built on ideology. It's built on, can I make you more scared of the other side? Can I make you hate the other side? I keep telling people, trust me, we only have one side, the American side. There might be different opinions of how we fix things and take care of our problems. We can't even identify and agree on the same problems anymore. Joe, they're so all in on this. I had Howard Lutnick on the other night, right? Happy to have him on. Told him you got an invitation going forward. Listen to what he said. Talk about no shame in your game about who they want to work with. Watch this.
I've got the best 150 Republicans in the United States of America, from Chuck Schwab to Mark Rowan.
So you're only hiring Republicans?
Yes. What a shock. The Republican president is going to hire Republicans who are going to be fidelity to him, his policies, and him, because he's the CEO. Why would you pick someone who's going to try to go the other direction? That would be silly.
Didn't used to be silly. It used to be smart. You used to want to mix it up so you would have a fair broker going to the other side. Not anymore.
Well, no different how we run our offices. We run our office. I got young, bright staff. They're wonderful. They come in. They all have ideas. I want them to challenge me. Now, at the end of the day, I got to make a decision. But I can guarantee you, I'm listening to all of them because it makes a lot of sense. But then I said, listen, gang, here we go. And we go. Now, the bottom line is you got to stay on top of things and run things. But you can't have just hearing one side of it. If you're hearing one side of it, why are you working so hard? Why are you spending so much money directed towards the independent voters who don't want a side? They don't want your side. They're undecided. They don't want a side. You already got your side. They don't want that side. They want you to be open enough to take both sides in. Why would they be spending all this time and effort, Chris, if that wasn't the case? This doesn't make sense to me at all of what they're saying and what they're going to do. And for someone like that, if I had someone in my office that said what that gentleman said, that person wouldn't be part of my team. No, I want everybody. I want to hear. And they all should want a bipartisan. When you think about it, think about Lincoln trying to bring this country together. He picked Jackson. That wasn't a good choice, but he did it for a purpose.
That's right.
We have so many in tough times. We've been through this before. I'm old enough to remember the 60s. I never thought I could live through. I saw a president got assassinated. I'm a 12-year-old boy, and this happens. And then I saw Bobby Kennedy, and I saw Martin Luther King. I saw Vietnam War, as horrible as that was. And then basically I saw America on fire. I saw it all, and I told my dad, I don't know how we're going to make it. He says, we'll make it. We always have. And we'll make it again. Your entry and also your comments at the beginning were spot on, Chris. Don't worry. Don't get too upset. The die has been cast. It's going to happen. Whatever happens, it's going to happen. And whatever people are going to say, they're assuming that basically Donald Trump, the only fair election is the one he wins. They should also be assuming that Kamala Harris, coming from the judicial branch of government, will protect the rule of law. She will protect the orderly transfer of power, and she will accept it. That's what they should expect. I'd like to see President Trump do the same thing. It would be absolutely unbelievable. But I was hopeful. I was very hopeful after he had his near-death experience, Chris. When they had their convention, I thought he had a perfect time to say, "Listen."
That he'd pivot.
I said, I thought about what January 6th. I could have helped my country more. I thought about the 2020 election. We need to basically work harder to secure our elections, but I lost that election. Those two things, it'd have been a slam dunk. It's over.
Yep, but that's not who he is. That's who you are.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of, hey, Chris, we have a lot of good senators, a lot of good Congress people. I know them both. They're all my friends on the D's and the R's. I've never campaigned against a sitting colleague. Things have got to change. We can't even basically police our own self of how we treat each other. I tried to pass this ethics law that says, hey, it's an ethical violation to go out and campaign against a sitting colleague. If somebody wants to send somebody from California, New Mexico, wherever, whoever they send from that state, I'm going to basically gather and say, you're part of our team now. How do we work together? That's it. You make that decision. I shouldn't be going out there. I shouldn't be giving money to people against you when I've got to work with you. I work in a hostile work environment every day. When I walk into the Senate, there's people trying to get you fired every day. And you're supposed to keep an upper lip and say, okay, can we all be kumbaya and come together? That's not human nature. So you got to change some things. The only way you can change it is have an open primary to where you cannot be threatened if you don't toe the line. If you're on the D or the R side, Chris, and you're not toeing the line, well, they're going to say, you're just not a good enough Democrat. You're just not a good enough Republican.
I know, but the party's going to say, yeah, but it's our club. We want our people to vote. Now, some states have done it, and ranked choice voting, that would be what you'd have to push in. But, the problem is all the people in power, except for you and a handful of other senators, not even a full hand, they make the rules and they're in the club. That's the problem. But we'll keep the conversation going. Senator Manchin, let's get through this. Let's get through it together. And then we'll see if the work of the people can get done.
Remember what Winston Churchill said. Winston Churchill said in the thrones of the parliament who were coming down on him hard, where's your buddy FDR? Where's the United States of America? How come they're not helping us? He says, don't worry about the United States. They'll always do the right thing once they've tried everything else. That's where we are, Chris. Well, we're trying it all.
We need to take his advice. We need to take his advice to keep calm and carry on now as well. Certainly, that's my motto. Senator Manchin, be well. You're always welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless America. Thanks for what you're doing, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right, Senator, be well. 4 minutes and 5 seconds. And I do want to ask you something. Before you fill up my phone with all the why you don't like Joe Manchin because you were a Democrat, you tell me what you disagree with that he just said should be going on. Now, I get it. I get it about your teams and stuff. But if what you care about is the net result of who wants to try to get something done that can make the country better, what did he just say that bothered you? Now, let's keep balancing where people think. Florida Congresswoman Paulina Luna is very interesting. She says that she has a good take on what's happening with Trump, but I want to talk about her race also. She got a little bit of a scare there with the woman who's running against her on the Democratic line. Now, the race seems a little bit more in Luna's favor. I want to talk to her about why everything is so close.
And he's a major divider. I watched him the other night. I mean, he's a very divisive guy. I've always said that. He is a very divisive guy. And his wife, I've always been so nice. Ooh, she was hitting me. She was hitting me, Michelle. She was hitting me. That wasn't nice. I've always been nice, but they're dividers, I'll tell you right now. We're not going to stand. Dividers are no good. He's a highly overrated man, I'm telling you that. But he's a divider. I watched him with this crap where he's trying to get her in. He's the one that pushed her in the first place. And look what happens. I mean, I hope it happens, because if it doesn't happen, this country's in big trouble. But we've been doing this now for 9 years, and we had a great first term. We rebuilt our military. We cut taxes more than any president in history, including Ronald Reagan, who did a big tax cut. We cut more regulations. We developed an open Space Force through the Congress, and I think that's going to go down. First time in 82 years that last one was the Air Force. We did that. I mean, think of all the different things that we did. We were respected all over the world. China respected us. Everybody respected us. There was no laughing at your leader. They came up with all these hoaxes, Adam Schiff and all this scum that we have in this country. They're scum. And they knew it was a hoax. And they tried to put this guy who didn't know anything about Russia, they tried to put him in jail, Adam Schiff, conceived of the story. Think of it. Adam Shifty Schiff, one of the truly unattractive people. I call him watermelon head. He's got the largest head and the smallest neck. He's got a neck that's about 4 inches around. He's got a watermelon on top of it. But he's not a stupid person, but he's an evil kind of person. And he's likely going to be a senator, unfortunately. But, I mean, this scum is going to be a senator.
In the category of you can't make it up, former President Trump here on the eve of the election saying people who divide are no good. And that is literally all he's doing, is criticizing anyone who doesn't support him. Now, will it be enough? We will see in the days to come. Somebody who has insight, somebody who has a race of her own, that is a commentary of what's happening in the country. Florida Republican member of Congress, Paulina Luna, running to stay as the representative for Florida's 13th district. She says she's seen some internal data from Trump campaign that is promising. Let's ask her. It's good to have you, Representative.
Thanks for having me back on, Chris.
So what do you know that we don't know but should know?
Well, first and foremost, I know that the Trump internal polling is showing that they will have a win tomorrow night, but I am going to have to push back on you a little bit. First of all, my race is not close. In fact, I've been actually suppressed with polling suppression, which is very common in elections, from local press, and we are also projected to win. So what you're actually showing is a toss-up poll from the same exact outlet that actually reported that I was also supposed to have a toss-up last cycle. They're left-leaning, and unfortunately, they did not report on any of the other polls that showing that we had a 6-point lead. So I wanted to correct that. But also, too, just note that Kamala Harris recently went up, and she was saying that Trump was a threat to democracy. Granted, I want to talk about how we are going to move forward as a country, but this really all goes back to, I think, 2016, going back to the Russia collusion, Adam Schiff, the Durham report, all of that. What I can tell you as a first-time member of Congress, having been up there in Washington, being told that if I don't vote with my party, that I won't get reelected, that if I decide to bring up things like inherent contempt and read the rules manual, that I'm somehow acting outside of regular order. Just understand, Chris, that the uniparty does exist in Washington. And the reason why President Trump is resonating with Americans across the country is because he is not that politician that goes up there for 20 years and doesn't do anything. The objective is not to become friends. It's to work together to be Americans first and foremost, but it's to represent your constituents. That is exactly what I'm doing, and that is exactly what I'm hearing, and that's exactly why I will be getting elected and why I also believe President Trump will be getting reelected.
Just to be clear, you're not suggesting that I skewed the polls, are you?
No, but I think that you showed a fake news poll, and so I wanted to inform you that that's
not a fake news poll. It's from The Hill that is owned by our parent company, and they are not left-leaning.
Chris,
it's a summary of 5 polls.
They are recirculating a poll by the AP poll. No, I'm telling you right now that we are going to win by a way bigger margin. It is not exactly as it appears.
Luna, I don't doubt that. I looked at your first race. Who was it? Against Lynn. And it was the same kind of dynamic where there was an up and down. And the Democrats have definitely dumped a lot of money into the race, which was a little surprising to me, with Fox, who's a newcomer. I think she worked at the Transit Authority or something doing comms before this in Pinellas County. And I was surprised that they put it on their list of what to dump PAC money into. But the latest polling has you up by a few points, but it's close. And do you think that that is a reflection of the division in society, even down in the 13th in Florida?
Well, what I will tell you is I just got finished knocking over 61,000 doors and making over 110,000 phone calls. And so what I can tell you is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that people like myself, maybe if you want to take Florida 13 as a cross-section of the country, I am an outsider to Washington. I voted against my party. I voted against the uniparty in Washington, and I did hold people accountable. I actually also went after the Attorney General because he violated a subpoena from Congress to testify. I don't believe that anyone is above the law. But what I can also tell you, Chris, is that the same people that are reporting that this race is close are also failing to report that what we have experienced as a first-time reelect member of Congress. Just tonight, I think that I was talking about this earlier on social media, but there was a man who was arrested this evening at 5 p.m. for assaulting my female campaign manager who was a supporter of Whitney Fox. What I can also tell you is that the Democrats have said that because I censured Adam Schiff, that they do not want me reelected. Adam Schiff is largely responsible for the divisive rhetoric that we saw starting in 2016 and what I think contributed to the largest fracture in American history aside from the Civil War. I do want to move forward and I want this country to unite, but it can't happen if you have people in Washington, both Democrat and Republican, contributing to the problem. And so when I got elected, I promised my constituents that I would fight for them in D.C., and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to win tomorrow. Just watch.
Well, I will be watching, and I look forward to speaking to you after it. And I do think, though, and we have discussed this, someone's got to be better, Anna Paulina. It can't just be that everybody plays to their side and demonizes the other side, and that opposition is a position, that I won't do anything with these guys except what I have to because they're bad. Somebody's got to be better at some point. If Harris wins and not Trump, do you believe that your party will do what they did the last time, which is we're not working with them, we're going to investigate them, just like they investigated Trump?
I hate speaking in hypotheticals because according to the polling, Trump's going to win. But if we were to speak in hypotheticals and that was a situation, I think that as a whole, I think the country moves forward. But let me be clear about something. Kamala Harris went on television and said that Trump was a threat to democracy. Their rhetoric, their articles that they post, taking things out of context because negative campaigning is how they are going to try to bring up their numbers on undecided voters. That is also a part of the problem. And let me also be clear about something. The issue in Washington isn't just the uniparty, it's special interest money pouring into causes. For example, I have been trying to remove toxic crap from our food supply for the last 2 years. One of the biggest bills that Congress does is something called the Farm Bill, and there is a lot of money and special interest that goes into that. So part of President Trump's platform with Robert Kennedy, who, as you know, was running for the Democrat Party nomination to be president, is to make America healthy again. But let's be clear about something. When you have that much special interest pouring into Washington and you have people that have been up there for 10, 20 years running for office, do you really think that those people are going to make a difference? And the answer is no. And so what you are seeing is the rise of populist people outside of the system that are bucking the system, trying to make a difference. And that's exactly why I ran the first time. That's why I'm running again. It is moving slowly. We're actually making a difference. But again, it can be an uphill battle.
Anna Paulina Luna, good luck to you tomorrow. Thank you for coming on tonight. I'll talk to you afterwards. Best to you and the family.
Thanks.
All right, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Up next, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, okay? How does he see this race turning? What is going to matter most to the voters? And he is making the case, of course, for his party and for its nominee, Kamala Harris. What does he make of the next days to come? This is a man who has seen hard times. What is his take? The governor from Maryland, next. Trump is on the stump. Harris is going to be on the stump. We'll take that as well. Equal time here on election eve. Maryland Governor Wes Moore is making the case for Harris. He's been in Michigan as part of the Blue Wall bus tour. Let's bring him in right now. Gov, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Chris, it's good to see you, man.
So, Gov, let me get your head on this. I didn't expect the same kind of early voting as we saw during the pandemic because there was a lot more accommodation of that. But it seems that it's women that have diminished more than men in exurban and rural areas in Michigan and Pennsylvania. What's your read on that data?
Well, my read is that people are ready. I think this has been a long and exhausting election cycle. I think people have the information that they need, and that, now that we've opened up more avenues for people to be able to vote, whether it's mail-in ballots, whether it's early voting, or those who choose to go day of and go tomorrow, I think for a lot of people, they know their answer. And so that's why I think you're seeing more and more people who are taking advantage of the early voting, because I do think the energy is there. I mean, as I'm going around to Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, one thing I'm seeing is that the energy that in these areas, it is palpable. So it's actually not surprising to me watching how the early voting numbers have jumped, because I think people are ready to put their fingerprints on democracy.
Are you surprised there aren't more women coming out? You think they're choosing the economy over the taking of a right from them as a class?
I think we're seeing it both. I think we're seeing people who are focused on making sure that we can create pathways to work and wages and wealth, and creating more opportunities for our businesses and also our women-owned businesses. I do think that there are women who are motivated by the issue of reproductive health and reproductive rights, and do not want a governor or a president to be able to dictate or tell them about how to utilize their health care. And I do think, though, it's also just coming back to values. One thing I think we are continuing to see is as these candidates are making their final pitches, the thing I know, as now I've been a governor for 20 months, is some of the most important decisions that I will make, they won't be made in the normal 9 to 5 hours. They won't be made in front of a rally or a group of people. Some of the most important decisions that I will make as a governor are actually made in small rooms with a handful of people at 10 o'clock at night. And so the question that people are then asking is, who is remembering me in those rooms? Who's remembering my values? Who's a person that I trust that is thinking about me and my family when those decisions are being made? And so I do think women are not just engaged and involved, but women are taking this moment very, very seriously when they're thinking about who do they trust with their futures and with the future of their families.
What are you picking up in terms of people voting for something versus against something?
Yeah. I do not think you win elections because you're telling people how bad the alternative is. I don't think there's a history of that. I think people, and generally Americans, when you come out and vote, they're voting for who is the person that's going to help me to live a better life and who's going to help me to support my family. That's what people will go for. And so I do think in this race that we have very clear distinctions between the policy positions, between what people are talking about. I think that, you were talking about it earlier, Chris, where, just to be honest, listening to the closing arguments that we are seeing from the two candidates right now about what they're spending their time talking about in their final rally before Election Day is very telling, and people are paying attention to that. But I think people are looking for who's the person that can make sure that you can make things in my life more affordable. Who's the person that's talking about things like housing and increasing housing inventory and turning more renters into homeowners? Who's the person that's actually talking about things like childcare and being able to get people back into a workforce? And who's talking about uniting the country? Because I do think that the job of the president-elect, whoever that person is, whoever wins tomorrow, one of their first jobs is to make sure that we're bringing this country back together. Because the rupture in this country, it is real. The divisiveness in this country,
you think it's doable?
It is real. We've got to have leadership. I do think it's doable, but I think we've got to be intentional about it, and I don't think it's something that you can just do a talking point on it. I think you've got to make sure that you're bringing people around the table. And listen, Chris, when I think about what we were able to do, in Maryland, where we won with more individual votes than anyone who'd ever run for governor in the history of the state of Maryland. It's because we went everywhere. And we were able to win Democrats, win independents, win a good chunk of Republicans. And I told people that's not just how I'm going to campaign, it's how I'm going to govern. And now we're going on, we're about to go into our third year. We've introduced 26 pieces of legislation, and I've passed all 26 bipartisan, with Democrat and Republican support. So yes, can it be done? Absolutely can be done, but you've got to be intentional and unapologetic about it.
Governor Wes Moore, appreciate you making the case here on Election Eve. You are always welcome. We'll probably have more need for constructive conversation after this election. No matter who wins, you're welcome
Amen.
here as always. Thank you for coming, sir.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Gov, you too. Appreciate it. Governor Wes Moore, absolutely a leader of this country now and into our future. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Up next. So, what do you think? What do I have right? What do I have wrong? What are you seeing that I'm not? 844-968-7720. What does it mean that Donald Trump is going to bring out Megyn Kelly in Pennsylvania to do his closing at this rally after saying dividers are bad? Except her. Next. All right, Megyn Kelly making the closing argument for the man she once despised. Why? Opportunity and advantage. Let's listen.
May seem he was in the news this week. And he started going on about how bad America's race history was and how ashamed he was of America, and that's why he was at all these protests, and he felt it was really important to stand up and speak out about human rights violations. And then it got awkward when I asked him about all the money he was taking from China. And then he dropped a bunch of F-bombs, and I thought, I really enjoy this feeling of proving Mark Cuban wrong. And so here I am at a Trump rally, a strong, intelligent woman to prove Mark Cuban wrong again. I won't take up much of your time, but I do want to tell you the main reasons I am voting for Donald Trump. Number one, immigration. He mentioned it. And people like Laken Riley. I'll be thinking about her tomorrow all day. 22 years old, killed in Georgia, a young nursing student by an illegal. I'll be thinking about Jocelyn Nungare, 12 years old, in Texas, murdered by 2 Venezuelan illegals. President Trump closed the border. Kamala Harris opened it by choice. It wasn't accidental. She said it would be humane. That's what she and her boss believed. Tell it to Laken Riley's family. There was nothing humane about it. He closed it. They opened it. It was an intentional choice, and there's no reason not to believe they won't do it again. The boys should not be in the girls' sports. The boys should not be in the girls' bathrooms. The boys should not be in the girls' locker rooms. Peyton McNabb, North Carolina sophomore in high school, slammed so hard in the face.
I mean, look, it works for her podcast. You know, magnifying minorities, picking up on fringe issues. Picking on Laken Riley is, of course, going to hit an emotional note. If you're worried about homicide in America, is that where your concerns really lie? No, it's just opportunism. Will it be enough for Trump? The question is, are enough people who are center-left going to hear somebody like Megyn Kelly and say, yeah, I got to vote for him, doesn't matter how I feel about him? Or are there more people who are center-right who are going to listen to Megyn Kelly and be like, oh, I'm so disgusted she's on my side. I can't vote for this guy. Look at his face. He said the worst things about Megyn Kelly until she did the only thing you need to do to be okay with Trump. Compliment him. Dusty, who do you have?
We're running. You know, I was going to ask you why you weren't wearing your Justice for Peanut T-shirt, but I just want to give you some breaking news in the Peanut saga. There have been bomb threats at 10 New York State Department of Environmental Conservation offices due to the peanut controversy. Just FYI. But we'll get to
That's not what you want. That's not what you want. What you want is to help Longo and his wife keep their farm. Assuming he's done the paperwork and he's got it all licensed the way it's supposed to be, whoever came after that squirrel is going to come after the farm.
Okay, we got callers. We got Karen from Indiana. Our boss is calling. Sorry.
Karen, what's your question?
Yeah, Chris, I have wondered forever, and why do we have the college? I mean, the electoral votes. What happened to the popular vote? I mean, it's supposed to be us that vote for it. I mean, all we're worried about is 7
But you know
states.
what the answer is. You know what the answer is, Karen. They wanted to make sure that the smaller states didn't get swamped by the bigger ones. Now, there is absolutely an argument to be made that that rule has passed its utility, and it should be about the popular vote the way it is basically everywhere else. But you would need a constitutional amendment. And I do not see that ever happening because the Republicans benefit from the Electoral College. What?
Megyn Kelly. They would like us.
What about Megyn Kelly?
They would like us to go back to her.
I'll take another call.
Okay. All right. Next caller. Ray from Santa Paula, California.
Ray, what's your question?
Hello, Mr. Cuomo. How you doing? My question is very, very simple. Why aren't the rich, and I'm a Latino Republican, why aren't the rich voting for the wallets of the middle income, and why aren't the middle income voting with the wallets of the poor?
So this is the first populist movement that I've covered with Trump, where the policies benefit the wealthy. It's the first populist movement I've ever covered where that's the case. Usually what you're doing is trying to squeeze the rich, right? I mean, you know, the old adage is kill the rich, right? Not literally, I hope, but it's that you take from them to distribute to those who should be having more. Not this one. And what's happened is what Megyn Kelly is doing right now, making them angry about fringe issues and culture issues instead of what would be best for them and their families economically. And it's a really interesting dynamic and really effective. I'll let you listen to a little bit more before I go in, although I got to tell you, really weird to have her stumping for a candidate and then try to be a journalist. Oh, she's done. Damn. One more?
Yes. One more. Oh, Lordy, Lordy. Let's go to Jeff from Alexandria, Virginia.
Jeff,
hey, Chris,
what's your question?
Doing? So first of all, I want to thank you for posting many times about we need to listen to each other more. That's greatly appreciated, and I agree with you. The question I have is Trump's proposed cabinet, from what I understand, or his words, or somebody like RFK Jr. as the head of Health and Human Services, in particular with women's health care. Where do you feel about that? And who do you think would be an appropriate person for that position?
I don't know. I think it's a mistake to want to pick all loyalists. I get why Trump would do that, because in his mind, these guys went bad on him last time. I don't agree with that assessment, but I'm sure that's what's shaping him going forward. And that is, in a way, causing his own trouble because people are worried about who will be around him and whether they will not stand up to him wanting to do any of the crazy stuff that he talked about the last time. So I think he actually benefits from having strong people around him. But, you know, this is if he wins, it's his choice to make. Now, we'll see whether he wins or not. Kennedy, I don't know how Kennedy survives a Trump administration, to be honest, whether he says something or whether or not he has influence that he needs to be vetted for. And I don't know that he survives the vetting. So I don't know. I don't know how that works.